RAG does not need to be complex, and maybe I'm a little bit guilty of making it seem like it is because when I talk about RAG, which is retrieval augmented generation, I'm almost exclusively talking about vector databases. Now, this is the most popular and common way to implement RAG, but it doesn't need to be the way that you start doing it, and it certainly doesn't need to be the only way that you can achieve it, right? If your only tool is a hammer, then everything starts to look like a nail. So I want to walk you through different ways that I've actually implemented RAG to hopefully give you some inspiration to build your own projects, or maybe how you can use this within your own company, organization, team, whatever. But first off, what is RAG for those who don't know? Retrieval augmented generation. You get some data, you get some knowledge, and then you feed that to a large language model like OpenAI, Anthropic, Grok, whatever, and it uses that to generate a response. A user asks, hey, what's the company policy on taking vacation in France at this time of the year? You then get that document from somewhere, whether it's Confluence, a public web page, somewhere out there on the internet. You get that data, you pass it to the large language model, and then it can read that and then understand how to respond to the user. That's a very naive way of doing it. And I'm going to walk you through some much more interesting use cases and also show you some code because I think that you probably want to see some code too. And if you want a project that's going to teach you RAG in a more hands-on way, hands on your keyboard or prompt in Claude or whatever, then I have a project in the show notes which you might want to grab. Now, one of the simplest and most effective ways that I ever implemented RAG was in a system, a backend system that was looking at influencers on TikTok and deciding, hey, is this influencer not appropriate for our company? There were certain influencers that would be excluded, some by their actual handle. Sometimes we wanted to exclude whole categories of people. Sometimes we wanted to flag certain words. Were they some sort of person that did adult behavior? Were they actually a boat company? Was this like an anime character, not a real human? Well, we couldn't use them for the campaigns that we wanted to use. And this list was actually in the code base, right? It was in the actual system prompt, which is not ideal because like every other day, sometimes multiple times a day, the exec team would have another bright idea about what shouldn't go in there. Oh, wait, we do want certain celebrities, just not that celebrity, or we want this person, not that person. All these things they had wrapped up in their own minds. And then we would just keep going back and forth, trying to keep deploying more and more code to satisfy all the constraints. And I thought, what if we just had a Notion document or a Google document or whatever? We were using Notion. It was a cool kid company. So they put down all this information in Notion. And that way, when we were categorizing an influencer, the first thing we would do is look at this Notion document. We would send that Notion document to the large language model along with the information about the influencer, and it could use that to make a decision about, hey, what kind of category is this person going to fall into? This wasn't some super high level complex categorization. It was basically a yes no filter, and we could update this later on our own or manually adjust it as needed. But now our team could go ham, right? They could go in this Notion doc and just keep writing stuff all day long. And as we keep ingesting influencers, and we're talking about tens of thousands of people per day, we can make sure that this is getting the most accurate, up-to-date information. That way, if they're having a midnight meeting and burning the midnight oil and they want to update this Notion doc, or something happened on TikTok and some influencer is now canceled because they said something awful or whatever, we can just put them on that list and exclude them and get them the hell out of there, right? Super duper simple. This is still retrieval augmented generation, real use case, pretty easy to implement. And this is how a lot of people could just get started with this right now. If you're doing categorization, if you have some sort of knowledge base that is continually being updated, having a Notion doc or just some set of documents could just be what you need for your use case. Now I'm going to show you a personal project before I get into a larger project. This is a personal project that is essentially a clone of me. I write a lot of content. I've been writing online for years, nearly a decade. I have hundreds of articles, thousands of posts, tons of stuff that I've done over the years because I like to write. And sometimes I don't want to look through all that writing by going to all these different sites. So what I've done is create a system that includes both a vector database and just general information about me and my company Parsity. So that way, if I need to write a post and I want to have some sort of lead magnet, like the thing in the show notes here that I'm giving to you for free, I can look that up really easily. I've made tons of lead magnets over the years, and lead magnets, for those of you who don't know, are simply free resources that you give out to get somebody's email so you can try to sell them stuff later. I'm also trying to be pretty transparent, right? Like, I do own a company, I do sell stuff. I'm also a full-time software engineer. And so there's a lot of context that's needed for this system to work. It not only needs my articles, it needs an ever-growing list of all the lead magnets, resources, information about me, my business, the podcast, the YouTube channel, all this stuff. Now, some of this stuff I get through a web search, but a lot of this I just put in files here, right? I just have markdown files, kind of like if you use Claude and you give it skills. Well, I just have these markdown files, and then I simply use the file system and just dump that context into a large language model. I make a decision about what kind of context I need, and then I grab it and then I push that to the large language model so it understands if I say, hey, what's my latest lead magnet on, RAG or something like that that uses TypeScript. It can easily search over that markdown file, grab that for me so I don't have to have it scattered across different sources. And in this code here, you can see how simple this is. I have a tool, which is from a library called LangChain, a really popular tool for creating AI agents. Then all I do is this. I just say, hey, find the current working directory and then get these particular files from here, this JSON and some markdown files I think in here somewhere, and then just stringify it. Just make it readable for the LLM, and then it can read this and it understands the podcast topics in this case, the performance of previous podcasts, and my business overview, and it can give me very detailed, specific information about me and my business. I find this super duper useful. And lastly, this is the one that is probably hiding right underneath your nose at work. You don't need a vector database to start off with. In fact, if you're working at a mature company or even a not so mature company, you likely have a lot of data already. And it's probably in SQL, or maybe it's in Mongo or something like that. It's either in a key value store or it's in SQL, right? Postgres, whatever flavor of SQL you're using, maybe it's an Elasticsearch, whatever. It's in something that you already have that is queryable, right? The problem is a lot of times that the data is spread out all over the place, or you want to expose some sort of data through a chat interface. For example, somebody on marketing may say, what were the number of items we sold last March compared to right now? They could write out the SQL query for this, obviously, right? But what if you wanted to expose this to people that were non-technical? They basically have to ask a technical person to then write the query. That takes 5-10 minutes, whatever. Or you can just have this large list of ever-growing queries that are like these already baked queries. Or you could do something like this. A person types in a request, they just use natural language, and then you can have a large language model extract the search criteria. And you can make this as complex or as simple as you want. You can kind of determine, hey, what are some things we want people to be able to query? What are some where clauses? What is the schema? You could even pass it like a really large schema potentially and say, hey, from this schema, understanding all the relationships, the joins, the foreign keys, all these things, you can construct a query. Now, you'd want to sanitize that and make sure people don't do awful things. But if you're using an ORM, an object relational mapper, well, this becomes a lot safer, right? You can extract the search criteria by saying, hey, OpenAI or Grok or Anthropic or whatever, right? Here's some rules. Here's your prompt. Here are the different types of content and things you can use. Here's all your options for how to construct this query. And you can just give it all the information it needs. Again, retrieval augmented generation. So this is kind of like meta RAG. You're saying, here's the information you need to be able to retrieve more information that you need, right? So here's all the different stuff you can use to construct a query. We're going to give you the database schema. You're going to output something in here. And then from that, I'm going to make a Prisma query, for example, or whatever ORM you're using that's going to have all these different things, maximum, minimum, different where clauses, different tables you might want to select from, different joins you might want to do. And you can take all that and then compose a query and then get back some interesting information. And again, if you want to actually build this, some version of this, a much simpler one, it's in the show notes. Grab it. It's yours for free. It's going to teach you a hell of a lot more than just looking at code on a screen, I guarantee you. And obviously, at some point, you absolutely want to explore vector databases, especially if you're trying to transition into AI engineering roles, because this is what most companies who are hiring AI engineers want you to know, because they are using vector databases where they're taking words or pictures or whatever, mostly text though in most cases from what I've seen, and then storing this in a vector database. They're basically turning a large amount of text into numbers that encode meaning, and then they're able to search that in a high dimensional space. So when you want to do something like a semantically similar query, for example, if you're looking up FAQs, like for a really large company like DoorDash, and you say, hey, what do I do with this melted ice cream? Well, it can take that query and then look in this really high dimensional space with thousands or hundreds of thousands of documents and say, hey, what's semantically relevant? What kind of feels like what they're asking for? Oh, they're asking about what to do with ice cream in this particular situation, and they're in this country at this time, or whatever information might be relevant. And then using that to find all the documents that could be related to that, passing that to a large language model and saying, hey, Tim, the fact you spilled ice cream on a hot day, it's not your fault. Here's what you do according to our rules, right? Because they're not going to have people on phones waiting to answer that kind of thing. They're going to use something like a vector database and use semantic searching and querying and use RAG to help them with an actual business use case. RAG is the most popular way to implement AI, and you definitely should be learning it. Like I've said a million times, I hope you found that helpful. And if you want to go further and explore more of this, you can grab that project in the show notes, or you can go to parsity.io/AI-dev and learn more. See you around.